So that way, you, the audience, are as much the producer of meaning as Jean-Francois is. He has no control over what you bring to the table, even though he may be the instigator of it. So what I've sort of done is kind of taken his authorial role out of the work. So what I'll do now is introduce Jean-Francois to put it all back.
I have to reclaim my authorial role. I'm going to try to do that now.
Yes. Yeah, reclaim.
Well, as you said earlier, I was going to bring a more subjective aspect of my own work here. And let's see, when I... Were you going to say something?
No.
Oh, okay.
That's all yours now.
Yes. When I first came to the United States, it was about 30 years ago. I went to school here for a year, and I went back to France and finished school, and came back and moved and immigrated to the United States. And I was married in France with a girl from California, and we have 2 children. But anyway, when I moved to the United States, I felt an incredible change of my identity. You know, I didn't have my school friends anymore. Everything that pertained to every aspect of my life was different, and somehow I decided, maybe involuntarily, to start fresh with life in a way. So I had no political ideas, no beliefs, no system of beliefs. I just decided, well, I'm a fresh human being there in the United States of all countries, which is a good one to do that kind of things. Doing that, I began to recapitulate about my life and try to make sense, recreate my identity in a way. And I began to write journals very early, 30 years ago. I wrote journals every day, and they were half visuals, half written journals. My profession is that of an illustrator, a graphic designer and illustrator. I make a little parenthesis here. I work mostly in editorial. The last 20 years, that's all I've done, editorial work for magazines. And in doing so, across the years, I had to change. I use incredible array of techniques, you know, from drawing, oil painting, acrylic paintings, collage, copy camera collage, and photography, with photocopy, and then the computer came, and then that changed, and it evolves every year. Anyway, so early on, my attitude was to use anything to make an image. It was half written, half visual journals. They had no chronological order. That's, in other words, I would start on a journal, and all of a sudden I would put it away and go back to it a year later. And I'd just make a reference to where I stopped the last time. So now, 30 years later, I have about 200 of these journals. There are a few of them displayed here. And they create this whole sort of visual expression, which I started 30 years ago when I made a clean slate. I decided to sort of be my own scientific experiment, so to say, you know. And so I never thought of myself, except that I was an illustrator, as an artist, because that work was so personal, and I was really looking for the essence of things, the essence of time, the essence of the past, of memory, to this day, up until today. And very often it's a very emotional journey, you know. And at one point, it's interesting. I'm being very subjective here. I mean, almost like talking from the. I mentioned the element of time. Recently, I realized that time is like paint for me. It's like it's a media that I use. I do things in time. The sketches, like the ones you have in the banners in one of the corridors, are done in time. They are like a small dance or something like that. They have to be done. You know, they're not no reflection. It's just take the brush or just it's like a Zen moment or something like that. But it's very important, the knowledge of doing things in time like that. So, well, going back to this huge blob of sketchbooks, really, which is what they are, I came to a point in which I said, well, what is this? You know, what is this thing? I can make it into a book. I can't make it into a movie. I can't make it into a... and somehow I felt I came to a time where I had to express, to materialize something. And that's where I came up with the idea of this body of work, composite memory, and decided to make like a more constructed body of work. And also, one of the main motivation is that as you get older, you become conscious of your mortality. And if you're an artist, you somehow want to do something that will be left behind, or you're compelled to do that. So that's what I did, and it took me years to do. I saw it as it's a huge cycle when you think of it. The 7 machines are like a cycle of life, the cycle of a year. There are 365 images. 7 machines, like the 7 days of the week. 28 bells, like the moon, the lunar calendar. And each machine has a theme. The first one is called Fiat Lux, like in the Bible, let there be light. And it's all about the theme of beginnings, creation. There are pictures of my children when they were born. Picture of myself when I was young. And then also my interpretation of myth of creation from different systems of belief, from theoretical physics to Christianity, to Hinduism or whatever. I'm fascinated by the multiplicity of ideas about something like the beginning, you know. And in this body of work, there is a concept that I always bear in mind, is the idea of contradiction, of ambivalence. Well, talking about the different ideas of creation, for instance, some ideas contradict the other. So some images complete each other, you will see. On some myth of creations, well, it can happen, you know. Some might be even controversial. For instance, I asked the question, if one believes in God, did he go back to his original darkness after he created light? You know, it's nobody wants to hear that, no. But I mean, but I want to raise the question, you know. So anyway, this whole body of work, composite memories, just goes through 7 great themes. The first one, the number 1, creation. The second one is called Vesica Pisces, the belly of the fish. It's the intersection of two circles, and it creates this kind of fish-like shape. On the line between the two center of the circle is called the belly of the fish. It's really the logo of creation, of man and woman, of birth, it's the logo of duality. So the number 2 piece, Vesica Pisces, is about duality, about man and woman, about number 2. And number 3 is called, well, I'm not going to tell you every number, as you know, it's sort of a little bit self-described in the pieces themselves. But here I wanted to give you an overview of this. It's a complex project because it's, as Colin was saying earlier, it's movable, it's fluid. You cannot, you know, I created a monster in a way because I created with my still images, and because of the context that I put it in, no, it will always escape me. And then you have access to it as much as I do, you know. And that the other machines that I've displayed in the exhibits reflect a little bit similar ideas. I need a little sip of water here. I'm not going to go into details of them. You'll see my sketchbook, which is that kind of mass of information that I gathered over the years, from which I gleaned the material to make more focused, pieces. And when we go in the next room, the exhibition room there, I'd love for you to just crank the the wheels and enjoy it, and ask me any question that if you wish. Any of the pictures in this 365 images in the main piece, Composite Memories, are, in my eyes, a painting by themselves. But the fact I put them in the machines, then I force them into a situation in which their meaning will change, as Colin so well explained earlier. So let's move to. I think we want to answer some questions. If you have some questions for Colin yes.
How did you arrive at the name for your machine?
The Composite Memories?
No,
Stochasticons. Well, Stochasticons, well, actually, it came from my mentor, who is here, Colin Gardner, who was a teacher at Loyola Marymount a few years ago. He came to my studio, and somebody had mentioned to me, a friend of mine named Joe Flores had mentioned to me that these are stochastic machines. And I said, what is stochastic? What are stochastic machines? He said, well, they are machines that have infinite, it's a term used in economics, that have infinite possibilities and within a finite real limits. So Carm came over, and I told him about stochastics, and he said, well, you should call these stochasticons. So I give you credit for the word stochasticons. Well, Carm has been a very strong influence, and he's been working for years on a large body of work called visual logic, right? Visual syntax, yes. And it's a book that I use the principle of his books in my work a lot. It explains the power of the juxtaposition of images of two symbols, whether they are touching and whether they're remote, far away from each other, or superimposed. Imagine a man and a woman, And this is Carm has developed this really incredible observations on visual thinking with his book here. So it's a great influence on my work. All right, so did I answer your question, by the way? Yes, thank you.
Well, I have a question for Colin. Can you bring up that screen again? Mm-hmm. See, I think you're missing another dimension there, because so you have the axis of selection and axis of combination. If you think of those as your two inputs, and then your story is going to be your output. The dimension you're missing that you talked about first was the emotions. So because everything that your story that you're going to output or tell is going to be influenced not only by what you select, the order in which you pick it, but what you're feeling within yourself. So that's feedback for the linguistics, so put that back in there. It's interdisciplinary.
No, that's a very good point. I mean, the question was about the fact that what's missing with the axes is the emotions are not there. In many ways, I think the emotions lie in what I was talking about as the gaps between things in the images. The cat sat on the mat is kind of banal, but if you say it the way a method actor would, like, the cat sat on the mat. I mean, the cat's now a jazz aficionado. He's a dude, right? And it's a nightclub. And this is, again, I think the emotion comes out, and I should probably have mentioned this, I think the emotion comes out from the connotative axis, not the denotative.